and welcome to Cockatude, Cockatoos with Attitude. I'm Don Scott, and this is Sugar. I'm the Executive Director of the Chloe Sanctuary for Parrots and Cockatoos, and this is Sugar, who wants to be on the perch. That's her favorite place to be, so we're going to let her go there. Right, Shug? Right, Sugar? Here. She's fond of rope and leather, and she likes to play with little miniature shoes.
4, 3.
This is Peaches. And also in the room we have Chloe, the one who started the sanctuary, and Snowball, her mate. Chloe can't have babies. We'll go into that in her video. And she can't have babies, but she's happy to be mated to Snowball. And they act in every way like a mating pair, except that because they don't have babies, apparently that makes it so they're not quite as territorial as most birds who are mated. But our subject today is Sugar, who came to us, as you can see in this picture. She came to us in a pretty bad state. She had been living with an older couple for 12 years. She was basically nude from the neck down, and they were able to get some feathers back onto her, but she still had a fairly bare chest. She had broken primary and secondary feathers. She was physically a mess. And then, of course, it got worse. When we took her in, because of the change, and the way the change happened for her was that we went to Discovery Valley Animal Hospital in San Marcos, where Dr. Lee Young, who used to work with the Zoological Society of San Diego, where he practices. And we took 3 birds down for regular exams, and we ended coming back with 4. She was going to be transported somewhere where, unfortunately, they're not known to do well with birds that have feather destructive behavior. Even though they have a public exhibition area, they don't exhibit birds that have feather destructive behavior. So her chances of survival there would have been pretty small. She would have been dumped there, and then they would have left, and her whole world would have changed. She wouldn't have had the cages she was used to, or the relationship, and these guys formed permanent bonds. So she was bonded to these 2 older folks, and I seriously doubt she would have survived. Not only did she need medication, but she needed a lot of attention. So now the reason they were giving her up was not that they no longer cared for her. It was that the lady in question had a brain tumor, which they had just operated on, and the gentleman was having one heart attack after another. So in those situations where your life is falling apart, you have to start deciding to hand things off, and they were hoping to get her to a place where she could live out the rest of her life in relative peace. So they actually donated $500 to us to help care for her, and they gave us her old cages, which were fairly good.
3 or 4.
Okay, Peaches, we're going to turn that off for a while. I hope you don't mind. You mind? No. We burned through that in the first month and a half, trying to bring her around. What happened was, when I went to Discovery Valley Animal Hospital, the folks were there. They saw me, and it had been arranged by the administrator for the hospital that I get to talk to them. And what I saw was a bird in a dog carrier who looked she was a mess. Her feathers were mostly torn up, and she looked scared. They did take her to the vet regularly, so she knew something was going on. They're not they're a little more aware than most people give them credit for. So I ended up taking her home, and they said that she eats almost anything. Well, I found out that she eats almost any junk food. So that was something else we had to correct. Um, Although I do think that I started to correct it a little too soon with her. But it's hard to justify in your own mind why you should give her Frosted Flakes, since they're actually threatening her life for her eating things like that. But that's what she ate, was mostly junk food, and she wasn't even on the bad Parrot seed diet. She was eating mostly human junk food. So she came in, and within a few days, she started mutilating her chest. And at that point, generally we use psychotherapeutic drugs rather than put collars on birds. And with her, I immediately put her into an Elizabethan collar so we could start to heal the chest. And she had a large area where she was chewing her chest. It wasn't deep, but she was doing that, so I had to put Silvadene on it, which is a cream that was originally developed for people with severe burns. And it works without causing the normal problem. If you put any kind of a cream normally on a bird, their skin will actually lyse open, it'll split open, and they'll bleed. So you don't put creams unless they're approved for them. Silvadene is one of the approved products. What are you doing over there, Sugar? Hanging out with, you're going to hang out with Snowball, huh? Yeah, I didn't introduce Snowball. Yeah, Snowball. And so what I did was, I put the cream on her and she was wearing the collar. Now, her reaction to a collar, she absolutely hated it. I started with the plastic one that has the little piece around the center so that it won't hurt their neck. And she fought that thing. She would get on the ground, take a couple of steps, and flop. And then everywhere she went, she would flop. You could tell she absolutely hated it. Along with the collar, I was giving her haloperidol based on her weight at 0.15 milliliters. This is the 2 milligrams per milliliter concentrate. And it didn't seem to slow her down at all. She was still, you took the collar off, she was still pulling her feathers out. Now, on top of it, to make it even worse, the follicles where the feathers come through were actually pinched. They had been damaged and yanked and who knows what for so long. We know at least 12 years. And we're guessing her age is in the 40s because of the retinal sclerosis she has, that milkiness in her eyes. So the feathers had blood. Like a blood feather normally has blood going towards the end of the feather. But all of her feathers, all of her primary and secondary feathers were filled with blood, which is absolutely wrong. This is not the way birds' feathers come in. And when a feather came out, it didn't come out properly. There were things left in the follicle. It looked as if she was never going to be able to get her feathers fully back because of the way they were coming in. And then she breaks feathers. If she's not on a psychotherapeutic drug, she'll break her feathers. And since all of her feathers were filled with blood, I would be gone for a while. I'd come back, and she'd find a way to get out of a collar, and then she'd, half the side of her body would be bloody. And then it was pull the feather with the hemostats and run her to the vet because the follicles weren't normal. So you had to be careful with what you were doing with her. You have that. I needed to have a vet double check and clean out the area, possibly cauterize it. The Haldol didn't seem to be doing any good. She wasn't stopping her behavior of pulling her feathers, and the collars were aggravating her. So we switched over to Paxil and to try to calm her down. And the Paxil didn't do anything. I was also unhappy with the idea of using Paxil because because of the price of Paxil, you have to have a compounding pharmacy make it up for you. And there's been a lot of bad press on compounding pharmacies. You never know if you're getting the right percentage. You don't know what you're getting. So I was nervous about that anyway. So then I tried various and sundry different kinds of collars. Tried the globe that goes around the neck. That was useless. She was able to work around that thing. On top of that, she would bang her head. Her eyes were big, as if you had hit her with a stick. She absolutely hated it. Then I found a place in Arizona that had leather collars, and I got a 10-inch leather collar to go around her neck. She was fairly happy with that. In that when I say happy, I mean she wasn't thrashing herself. She still looked around like she didn't want it on, but then to distract her, I took and I made things to go around her neck that had large sisal twine hanging off of them and little toys, and so she was having a collar, having a toy around her neck to play with, and I ended up going through 13 different collars, and the leather ones, she figured out how to eat them off of her, so I went to the double thickness, but those were too heavy, so she started flopping herself down on the floor again, and this went on for a couple of years. Hi, Snowball. This went on for a couple of years, and I say that because when I was a kid, I had an injury. I ran into a truck and on my bicycle at a high speed, and it damaged part of the right side of my brain. So I don't remember what I did yesterday. I take extensive notes. I remember great technical details about things, but I can't remember what anyone looks like, and I have no concept of how much time has passed at all. So I went on doing this for a couple of years. Actually, this does work to my advantage when it comes to working with birds, because if you've been working with a bird for 2 years and it didn't seem like she was making much headway, some people would just give up. I didn't give up because I didn't even realize how much time I spent. I honestly didn't know how much time I spent until I was looking back at the original pictures, and fortunately Apple has everything timed, dated, placed, so all my pictures are in a timeline, and then I realized I had been working with her that long. We dealt with the follicles. Before we finally found the solution, we dealt with the follicles by Dr. Loudis at All Pets Animal Hospital in Encinitas put her on a high dose, the kind of dose you use for PDD, of Metacam, which is an anti-inflammatory. And what that did, and he said he'd seen it before, so it was worth a try. And actually, her feathers started coming in normally. The follicles started, instead of being pinched, they started turning around. And I'm being summoned to preen her down here, but she's a little overexcited. It is mating season. I am Peach's mate, just like I am with her because of the work I've had to do with her. She can't preen her own tail, so I have to do it. So she's trying to engage me in something that is just wrong. But in her world, it's fine. So the blood stopped going all the way through the feathers. So with the collars, she eventually got feathered again. Although she was obviously still psychotic. She hated the collars. I say hated. I don't know what emotions they have. I can't read birds' minds, but the behaviors were try to get the collar off, flop around, bang up against things, try to get hold of the center of it and pull it off, and this was pretty much constant. Take the collar off. That's a beautiful aria, dear. Beautiful aria. Yes, it is. So since the Paxil didn't work, and she still showed the same urge to pull her feathers, it finally got to the point where I just put her on the same dose I would have put someone who was actually mutilating her whole body and nearly bleeding to death, which is I put her on 0.20 milliliters of haloperidol and took the collar off. I said, well, let's sink or swim. And it was nuts. She immediately started just going after her whole body. And by the time she was done, she'd gotten rid of all the little fluff. And she still had all of her feathers. I suppose, we'll never know, but I suppose the itching was driving her crazy. And she just cleaned herself up. As far as her diet, that was slow going. Tried to put her on cereals that were not as sugary. Went to Cheerios. Hi, Peaches. I can't give you 100% of my attention, baby girl. I can see you want it, but I can't. Gave her Cheerios, started making her whole wheat pancakes. Just tried to come up with things that looked kind of sugary. Gave her that Ezekiel bread with a little earth balance on it, and she loves things like strawberry jam, so put a little strawberry jam on it and do it on both sides of the bread, so she was eating it. It was tough. Getting her to adjust to a better diet. She's still not there. She does eat some edamame. She'll eat some beans. She'll eat... she still has to have the jam in her food. I have to make a special bowl, as you can see what that looks like every morning. I have to make a special bowl of food for her, and she doesn't always eat it. She does eat pellets, and she does eat some of the little snacks. I do put a few sunflower seeds in every one, and I know the general community is, sunflower seeds, they're the end of the world. Well, it's not really true. You know, a small dose of sunflower seeds is not going to be anything like giving them frosted flakes, which she was on. So they all get 4 of those a day, or if the ones that use them for training, they won't get them that day if they're going to be trained with it. But she does eat a much better diet now. She still balks at eating any of the mash, which the other birds love it. But occasionally I'll see her eating some of the mash. Behaviorally, when she came here, she didn't show much interest in playing with anything. She would sit like she's doing now, and that's all she would do. This is actually not unusual for... This is actually not... Snowball! Thank you. This is not unusual for birds that are wild caught. They don't like the environment. They're being caged in when they've been flying free, and so that's probably one of the contributing factors. But she has started playing with toys. Right now, she's just happy to sit here. After a while, she'd come over and sit on my chest, and then she'll get back up on the perch. And this is her normal way of behaving. I think I can probably show you that she is mated to me if I just grab her tail. Usually, if I grab her tail, she'll flick it. You in there? You in there, Shug Shug? Hey, Sugar. What are you doing? You just sitting? Yeah, you just sitting. Hi, baby. Hi. As you can see, she does like me. Well, if you spent 2.5 years putting different collars on and trying to find out what food she likes, and she has a lot of little things. She does like papaya. She likes yams, and she loves French fries. If you bake them in the oven, they're not really that bad for her, so she can have a French fry like that. No salt, of course. You are just way too hormonal. This is female hormonal behavior. This is what you expect from a bird when a bird is sexually excited. I haven't done anything except have my arm down there with her, but she's all fired up. And if I don't give her some attention, she'll start screaming. But I don't want to give her too much attention because if they get in this condition and they do this too much, it can cause a prolapse. And if the insides have come out from her tail section, from her vent, then she's eventually going to die, even with the operations. So you try not to get them fired up like this. And actually, I didn't do anything that would have done that normally, but she's been really sensitive the last week. She's having a tough time. She's also gaining weight, so I think she might be producing an egg, which is unusual for Moluccans in captivity. Yeah, there she comes. Just got to get close to me. I can't pet you that much. I'll pet you a little bit. Just a little on the head. I don't want to fire you up anymore, kid. It's not healthy for you, sweetie. So, behaviorally, she hasn't shown much interest in other birds. She showed a little bit in Cecil, who's he's Elvis Presley when it comes to attracting females. He's amazing, and she likes him. She did at one time show an interest in Sal, who's her own species, but he's too wild at 4 years old, and so she backed away from that. What she will show behaviorally as far as being mated is if you come up to me while she's in the room and you get too close to me, she comes over and you would swear that she just wants to come up and be petted by you. She gets her crest up and she comes strutting up, but don't put your hands out because she will definitely bite you. She's just protecting me, and although to the untrained eye it looks as if she's happy to see you, she's not. She just doesn't want anybody getting too close to me because she owns me. So she's made a few friends. She's able to sit next to some birds without a problem, but she doesn't have any true bird friends. She likes leather strips and rope, and she likes playing with little shoes like this thing. You want the shoe back? You don't want the shoe. Okay, well, I'll put it up here in case you change your mind, okay? Okay? Now, some people would look at her, and she doesn't move around terribly fast, and she looks a little out of it. She looked like that when we got her. And where some people say that the haldol turns their birds into zombies, well, if you take her off it or even reduce it too much, the only activity that she'll increase is pulling out her feathers and bleeding. So other than that, this is her normal behavior. Oh yeah? You getting fluffy? She's not terribly active. She hasn't been active either before she was put on the medicine or after. Other than destroying her feathers, she didn't show much activity from the beginning. As we do with all birds that come into the sanctuary, we do a quality of life assessment. We use a standard assessment that's produced by the ASPCA and the Avian Welfare Coalition. And she was under 50 on a scale of 125 when she came in, which in most animal rescues would indicate that she would be euthanized. They use a quality of life assessment to determine whether or not an animal is worth saving. In her last assessment, she was 105. I mean, her overall outlook in life is actually pretty good. When she wants something, she'll ask for it. And I mean by ask, I mean she'll put her whole body into getting what she wants. Like at night when she loves going into her sleeping cage, and all the birds have sleeping cages. It's just best for them to have a smaller area where if they have a night fright, They aren't going to be flapping around in a large cage in the dark, since birds don't see in the dark. There's a good chance they're going to break their wings if they have a large area to flap in. So we have all the birds in smaller cages. It's also, they know what that area is for. It's for their last meal of the evening and sleep, and they know that. So it helps with the routine. Plus, every bird comes out. Every bird gets sprayed down in the morning, gets their food, gets their special thing coming from those cages, going into cages, coming out to play. It's all pretty standard. They get some variation on their day. I mean, sometimes I'm not here. I have to work too, so sometimes I'm not here in the morning or the afternoon. And they understand the situation, the way it's going to work out. They can tell by what I'm doing, where I'm headed, if I'm going to be around or gone, and they act accordingly. So what we're working on now is getting her more socially acclimated to the other birds, although she's doesn't seem to have, if you look at her, she's not showing any signs of fear. There's no sign of wanting to be somewhere else. Her eyes are open. She's interested. She's paying attention. If something happens that she wants to get involved with, she will. Sometimes she wants to get up here. Sometimes she wants to sit on my chest. She generally doesn't react too well if you try to entice her to do any of those things. She makes her mind up when she wants to do them on her own. I don't know if we'll catch her doing that today. Will we catch you doing that, sweetheart? Will we catch you? So, what saved her life was concentrated work to bring her around. But the number one thing that saved her life was finally finding that she requires a higher dose of that antipsychotic drug to reduce the dopamine in her brain so that she doesn't do what people who cut their wrists do. Because the feather destructive behavior, and I've spoken with this of Dr. Jenkins, and he's been using psychotherapeutic drugs with birds for 20 years, I believe. I hope I'm right on that. But the dopamine level in the brain, the anxiety level gets really high in people too. And in a lot of people, when that dopamine level goes up, they cut their wrists. Once they cut their wrists, it releases the natural endorphins, the opiates of the body, into the bloodstream, and that makes you happy. So then they don't want to die, and they call 911. So the same thing happens with birds. If you can get that dopamine level down and get it at the right level, then there's no urge to pull those feathers. Because when you damage a feather, you hurt yourself, it creates that whole cycle. Peaches, I'm going to have to take you out of here if you're going to scream the whole time. Let's not scream. Oh, you want to sit on my chest? Will I keep you from screaming? No, I'm not going to pet you all the time, though. No, I'm not. Nope. Because if I do that, then you're going to start shaking again. No, we're not going to do that. So, and the trick with it is to get that dosage right. And in the beginning, for probably the first year, we had the dosage too low. And that's why we tried Paxil and then went back to the Haldol, and it just wasn't working. But when we went to the large dose that you give a bird that's killing itself, it's actually in the process of killing itself, it stopped. So she has a high resistance to the drug. She'd last, I doubt she'd last 2 weeks if you took her off of it. And I have pictures somewhere. What are you doing, sweetheart? I have pictures, and I'll see if I can dig them up and put them in the video, but there's one picture in that was the day that I decided that I was going to give her the higher dosage. I came back from a computer job, and I always went to check her first. When I got to her cage, she was bloody. I mean, her whole body was covered in blood. I didn't know how she could still be alive, because there's not that much blood in these guys. And I found the feather that she broke, and I pulled it, and I cleaned her up, and I got her to the vet, and we went through and pulled all the feathers that she had, that were damaged. And after she'd gone on the higher dose of Haldol, the next step, of course, is to bring the dose down to find the baseline. You do that slowly. In her case, we did it even slower than normal. The normal way you bring it down is you bring it down by 0.01 milliliter, which is a tiny amount, but you bring it down by 0.01 milliliter every 2 days if you don't see the behavior. So what I was doing was waiting a week and dropping her by 0.01, and a week and dropping her by 0.01. It reached a level, and then she just tore into herself, and she was a bloody mess. I came back from work, and she was absolutely just soaked in blood. I couldn't even believe that she was still alive. It was unbelievable. I found the feather that was bleeding, and at the time she still hadn't had all of her feathers come in normally yet. So I found the feather that was bleeding, and I pulled it, and then I got her down to Dr. Young at Discovery Animal Hospital in San Marcos. And we pulled over 75 feathers that had just been damaged. At that point, I just put her back on 0.20, set that as the baseline, and I don't drop below that now. And her behavior is just fine. She gets busy, and right now she's in kind of a sleepy time, but she gets busy, she gets active, she plays, she's doing all the things she should be doing. I can't give you all the attention, Peaches. I can't give you all the attention. No, I can't. I know. Cluck.
Hello.
Oh, hello, and cluck, cluck, cluck. Oh, hello. Peaches just got to say hello, doesn't she? Doesn't Peaches have to say hello?
Hello.
Hello. What, do you think I'm talking on the phone? There's no phone here. What do you think's happening? This girl Peaches loves to be on FaceTime with people. And she'll say hello, and I love you, and she'll just go back and forth with people on FaceTime. So she loves that. Somehow she's got it in her head that's going on now, I guess because I'm talking. So you'll hear a lot of people say that they don't want to give their birds drugs because it turns them into zombies. Well, Haldol doesn't turn birds into zombies. You've been watching Chloe and Snowball. Chloe's on Haldol. And if you can see her, she's fine. Without that drug, she would probably already be dead. We'll go into that story, but her feathers were gone on her chest, and she was a mess, and she was the first bird that we used Haldol with. And we're not the only sanctuary to do that, or the only rescue. There's a rescue in San Diego as well. Peace is using it, PEAC. And I've seen some of their birds, and in fact, I was at a pet expo, and one of the executive director and I were talking, and he had a Moluccan there that was in perfect feather and just having a good time there at the expo. And I said, well, this bird had feather destructive behavior. How did you solve it? And he looks at it and he goes, Haldol. And that really is the solution for most of these birds. There may be one or two that may not react to it well. Keep in mind that when you're using it with some birds, reducing anxiety can mean that you can get more activity out of a bird. So a bird might become more what we would call aggressive. We have one bird here Cecil has some minor feather destructive behavior, but you can't give him Haldol and hold him because he doesn't seem to have any restraints. He'll do whatever he's going to do, and that usually is going to be painful. It's not that he wants to hurt you. He just overreacts. And he was that way when we first got him. He had a lot of that, and he's worked through it. And he plays hard with toys, but he doesn't turn around and bite you when he plays hard with toys anymore. If you were to give him Haldol, you would have to be cautious about raising the dosage extremely slow if you didn't want to lose a limb or something. But in most cases, they're going to become more active when you find the right dose. With her, with sugar, that took nearly 1.5 years to find the right dosage. So you can't just go in and say, well, I'm going to try this for a week and see if it works. That's not going to do it. So in order to to use that drug, you have to start at whatever the baseline is for the weight, and then raise it by 0.01 milliliters every 2 days if you're still seeing feather destructive behavior. Lower it if the behavior looks normal, and go back and forth until you find a baseline. And then when November rolls around, or late October, you need to change that dose, and you have to watch their behavior, because if when that mating season comes in, they're going to start doing things a little differently, and watch for the feather destructive behavior, and then raise the dosage. And usually that's just the first few weeks you have to raise the dosage, and then you can just settle it back down. Keep an eye on them, see what their feather condition is, and you want to make sure they stay active and they're interested. But we highly recommend that you see your veterinarian and discuss this. A lot of vets don't want to offer this anymore because people don't understand how to use it, and they're not going to follow through. They're going to try it for a few days and give up. And what's the point of doing that? Imagine that you had a psychotic incident and you were trying to kill yourself, and you went into a facility where they were to help you, and if they gave you nothing at all, no drugs at all, and just let you walk around with the other people, you're probably going to still hurt yourself, right? You still have access to things where you can hurt yourself. You're going to. So usually when you go into a facility like that, they give you a drug to calm you down, and then they work with you, and they may wean you off the drug. They may keep you on it. This is no different than what we do with the birds. And if you don't mind being Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and if you have to wear the little hat and get your hair up like she has, you got to pretend you're Louise Fletcher in that role. Do it, because this one here also had feather destructive behavior, and she was on Haldol for a while. She doesn't have it anymore, so she doesn't use the drug anymore. Do you? He goes, no, but I want your attention, Dad. All of it. All of my attention. Yes, I know. You just want it, don't you? Shug Shug? Sugar, you going to talk to the people? You're not? Hey, baby. Thank you. I'm talking about you. Yeah. So her prognosis is good. We think she's becoming more interested in other birds, and we think she's going to start playing around with them a little bit more. And there's been evidence of it. She's been doing it more frequently, showing an interest in them. And as long as she's maintained on a bare minimum of 0.20 milliliters. Right now she's on 0.21. She's been as high as 0.23. If you see a broken feather and you see her holding a feather and chewing it, sometimes they just fall out and she does that. You need to increase her dosage, because that means she's starting to get back into that behavior. Then if it's okay for a while, you can start lowering it, and it's not ever going to stay stable. I think I have one bird that's unstable, and maybe once every 6 months with Roman, I'll lower him down a little bit, and then I'll see his feathers start to kind of get weird, and he's back up. And he's on a tiny dose anyway, hardly even noticeable. As long as she's put in the middle of everything, kept central and not put aside, allowed to sit up on her ropes above her cage, given her own time, which she seems to value more than the social time. She needs some socialization like this, sitting in a room with other birds, and with me. She needs some time sitting by herself. She's given a wide variety of foods to choose from. Make sure she gets her strawberry jam, just a tiny bit, just a little bit, like a half a teaspoon in her food. And she's shown a variety of things, and she's given her medicine. She should be able to live out her life fully. I don't see any reason why not. Take her off the drug, I doubt she'd live a month, maybe not even 2 weeks. I've seen it. I've seen what she does, and she's going to bleed to death or die of infection. So other than that, she doesn't show any problems. Her poop is normal. Her Her eyes, she does have retinal sclerosis, so that does not really affect their vision, but it makes it look cloudy inside of her eyes. She doesn't have any other physical disabilities. She's a good girl. She's quite loving. She'll make some moves. If people see some of these moves she makes, they may get scared and pull away, and she might learn to do behaviors that she shouldn't do, like threatening with her beak. But at this point, the only ones she threatens are people who get too close to me. I fully trust her. Yes, I do. I trust you. And she's a sweet thing. She does say hi. She says hi. And she makes some other sounds that sound, well, they pull your heartstrings because they're it sounds like she's moaning in a way, but it's just her way of communicating. She's actually not upset when she makes those sounds. It's just, it's an I want kind of sound. Yeah, with her, it's just, you've got to accept the fact that she's going to be one of those birds that doesn't want to get involved in a lot. But when she does, she's going to be forceful about it. We're talking about full wings, full beak, pulling herself in a direction. I want to go there. And she has no problem letting you know what she wants. And same with food. If she sees something you've got, she's right on it. So her attention is right there. It may not look like it, but boy, she's a little fireball when she wants to be. Aren't you? Aren't you? Yeah. See, you can tell she loves me. I touch her tail and she does that. Don't recommend you do that with any birds, but she's already made it to me, and it's not like I'm trying to get her sexually aroused. Right, girl? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not going to force you into the camera, so that's our podcast for today. This is Sugar, and remember that you can donate to us on a per episode basis at www.patreon.com. That's Patreon, and you can donate in a single time out at our website, chloesanctuary.org. That's Chloe spelled CHLOE, sanctuary.org. And you can subscribe to us on iTunes, where we have our audio version of this podcast. And, of course, we're on the YouTube channel, Chloe Sanctuary. So, say bye! Please visit our website at www.chloesanctuary.org. That's Chloe spelled CHLOE. You can support us on a per-episode basis by visiting www.patreon.com, that's Patreon, /Chloe Sanctuary.